Hello, welcome again to Codecast Live. Don D'Amato here, and today we're going to be talking about something called Pug. If you know about front-end development, you might not have even heard of Pug. Pug is actually something that compiles into HTML. It's an easier way of writing HTML without actually writing HTML. So it's just like a different syntax for HTML. I've been using it a lot recently just because I've been writing a lot of HTML for templating or otherwise just making lots of structure and not really wanting to write all of the different classes and attributes that go on HTML, even the brackets, just writing a lot of different stuff that I feel like would be easier. And I've played with Pug in the past, and there's a lot of other, I think, people that are out there that are writing kind of different languages that compile into HTML, just because there's a lot that you have to write just to make an HTML div. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about there. Let's go into the code here. That's the code pen. And I didn't do anything special with the code pen just yet, but you will need to do something a little special. There's a gear here, over here where it says HTML. If you click the gear, and it says HTML preprocessor, there's a couple of different ones that are here, and we're going to be going with Pug today. It's the one that I know. Markdown is another one that's pretty common in terms of using for documentation purposes, but I'm going to use Pug today. I'm going to click Pug. We'll do a save and close. Okay. Now, instead of writing HTML here, we're going to be writing Pug. All right. Now, the only real difference between the two things here is that we're not going to need to write all these HTML bracket tags and stuff like that. We can actually simplify this a lot more. So, for instance, if I wanted to just make a div on my page, I can actually just write the word div. And that'll actually make a div on the page. You can't see it, but we're going to inspect, and we'll get inside of our body here. There's the div. Okay, so that's the div I just wrote, which is pretty cool. Now, if I want to nest a div inside of another div, what we use is white space. So we can go ahead and hit enter and then tab over and then make another div. This is going to reload for me. There's the reload. I'll make a little inspect here. And then we roll this down. Here's the div, and there's the div inside of it. Okay, so two divs. So as you can see here, all I got to do is write the tag name of the element that I want, and then I'll get it. And then if I want to put a tag inside of another tag, I can just kind of do the white space thing and just make a little, like a indentation, and then write the next tag. So if I want to put a span inside of this this main div here, I just hit enter and put a span down here. Okay, it's going to reload for me. And I'll do inspect, and then we'll go into the body again, into the div, and then you can see a div and a span. Okay, so it's a much faster way of, instead of writing, div with the brackets and then inside of there having a div with open and close, and then close it down here. I don't have to worry about that. I could just write the tag name and do some indentation and get what I need to get, which is really nice. Okay, now how do you actually put content inside of one of these things? Well, you can use the equal sign. So equals, so I could say maybe we want to put the quick brown fox in here. So I can say equals, say the quick brown fox. Maybe I need to do a space in there first. There we go. Let's try. I think it's actually just space that it needs. Doesn't it even need the equal sign? Oh, maybe it doesn't need the equal sign. Huh. I think another templating language needs the equal sign. But apparently just a space just does the thing what we needed to do, which is great. So I just put a space in between the tag and the text that I want to write, and that'll work just fine. I think another way is if we hit enter and then use the pipe character. I think this will also work. Maybe this works too. Yeah, so that worked also. And again, if we inspect this stuff here, you can see here's our main div. And then there's a div inside of that. Or actually, this isn't even inside that div. It's just like content between the two. Okay, so that's probably what the pipe character is for. It's like to put at the same level as the div and the span. We put stuff in there. But if I wanted it inside of the div, I think if I just do a tab over here, it probably puts it inside. Yeah, I think that's right. Let's inspect that again. There it goes. So again, the tab is just saying that this is nested inside of here, so whether the pipe character is there or not. I think the pipe character is actually for escaping weird characters or things that might look like divs. I think that's just what that's for. But yeah, usually you just put a space, and then whatever comes after that space is going to be content inside of that element. All right. Now, how do you put like different classes and IDs onto stuff? Well, one of the things you could do is just like you would do it in CSS. Let's say we have a class as a container. So you'd actually just do dot container, and now this thing is a container. And I could actually just do it with CSS down here, container. We'll say border 1 pixel solid blue. And then you can see it actually has the class on it. See, you have that container class. So actually in Pug, you don't even need to say div. If it's just a div, you can actually just say dot container, and it knows it's a div just by default. So that's a little shorthand you can know as well, is that you just do dot container for something that has a class of container. It's going to assume that you want it to be a div. Now you could change it to whatever you want. Let's say like it's an article instead, right? Then it's going to change this thing into an article. Let's change that there. And now it's an article. See that? That's pretty cool. The other things, of course, is adding attributes to stuff. So maybe we want to add an attribute to this this child div here. Let's add the what attribute should we add? Let's add editable content. Let's try that. So we'll do editable content, just like that. And then we should be able to edit this. Is that not what the editable? What's the editable content thing? Editable content HTML. Oh, content editable. That would do it. I'm backwards. I'm just going to copy it because I'm lazy. All right, I'm going to say content editable. That should work. Okay. Now it's editable. So now I can edit this content in here, which is cool. So, so you can add an attribute by using these parentheses. All right, so that would be the same kind of thing, and actually I'll just save it so we can see what's going on over here. You see the content editable attribute that's here, right? That's the same thing as content editable as an attribute over here. Okay, and then the equals empty string is just saying like it's a Boolean value. It's like a true or false. We can make a regular, like another kind of attribute in here, like a data attribute. We'll say data, I don't know, whatever equals something. Okay, so I'm obviously just making up stuff because divs don't normally have data attributes. I suppose we could do some ARIA stuff or whatever, but now I have the data attribute as data whatever, and then it equals this value of something. So that's a typical attribute you could put onto something. And that's basically Pug. There's definitely a whole bunch more stuff to it. I think if you just search Pug HTML on Google, pugjs.org, that'll go. So this is like how you use Pug. Now this overview over here is stuff you don't need. What you actually really need is the language reference. So how do you write attributes? Okay, well, let's look at that. So this is how you write an attribute. Actually, I guess the link tag would have been a really good example. You can see that they have an A tag here. And then they're writing an attribute of href. Here's the link itself, and that'll actually render to this over here, which is cool. Okay, so most of the stuff you actually would need to like write in Pug, it'll show you down here. So like here's a tag. This is how you write a tag. You can nest the tags like this. You have this idea of saving space to like inline stuff. So you use like the colon, and that'll like inline stuff. I've used that for lists when you have like a UL and a whole bunch of LIs and you have stuff inside of there. I've used that for elements. So if I have an LI and then an A, I'll do like LI colon A and then the whole thing, which is really helpful. Apparently there's conditionals in here. If you want to do some kind of conditional if-else statements, then you could totally do that in Pug. I'm assuming that it needs some JavaScript to, of course, do that, but it's a little wild stuff. I'd rather personally just write the HTML that I need to write, like I would regular HTML, and just have the expectation of just regular HTML. I don't normally like to write conditionals inside of this, inside of any languages that don't already have conditionals, so that includes CSS. I really much rather write conditionals like in the JavaScript where I'm expecting. But of course, you could do that with Pug too if you really wanted to. And that's really all I wanted to show you today. It's just another way of like writing HTML. It's a little bit faster because you're not, again, writing the angle brackets in there. You're not writing the opening and closing. You're just using white space to determine what stuff is nested inside of other stuff. I think it makes it really much faster to write, and it takes a little getting used to like understand a different like look of HTML. But overall, I think it's a little bit easier to just kind of blast through making a template. And that's all I'll leave you with today, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.